Hey guys, welcome. Thanks for clicking on that button. Y'all are some of the smart people. You're going to learn what's out there, what's possible for you as real estate investors in Texas. So I'm not gonna delay too long. Let's get started. I'm going to talk to you all about what this alleged rubber meets the road education is. So a quick disclaimer, since this is being recorded. Let's talk about wholesales. I'm going to take a piece out of our presentation on wholesales in the Ultra Education package and talk about it. Texas laws. So if you're coming from out of state and investing in Texas, especially, then you're going to need to know what the Texas laws are. And we're talking about a lot of things that some of the general investing gurus don't teach about the law side of things, the title side of things. They may just teach you about structure and some of the common investor aspects, but we talk about all of it. So the laws in Texas, there's three different Texas statutes that govern wholesaling in Texas: the occupation code, the administrative code, and also the property code. They all say some different things, but I'm going to boil down the bottom line requirements. And one is that you must disclose to the buyer that you're selling an equitable interest. And so what I like to say is I'm selling my rights to the contract, not my equitable interest, because most folks don't understand what equitable interest is. So you have to disclose to the buyer that you're not selling 123 Main Street. You're not advertising 123 Main Street. You're selling your rights that you have to that property. And then also, you have to disclose to the seller before contracting. Now, this is new as of 2024 here in Texas. Before contracting, you have to disclose to the seller that you intend to wholesale this property. You intend to go find an end buyer for this property. And now understand, if you contracted with a seller and you weren't intending on going out there and wholesaling the property, but then you do in fact go and attempt to wholesale that property, there can be an allegation that you failed to disclose what your intentions were. So you have to be very, very careful here. If there's a remote chance that you're going to wholesale this property, then you have to disclose that in the contract. And we put it over there in paragraph 11 of the TREC 1 to 4, that it's your intent to wholesale this property. So let's talk about these disclosures. How do we do them? On the seller side, I like to disclose in two different places on the contract. Paragraph 1 of the Texas Real Estate Commission promulgated form, the TREC 1 to 4 contract. And up there in paragraph 1, I'm going to put my buyer name. And then at the end of it, I'm going to put and/or signs without further involvement or without further need for seller to approve. This helps us a little bit over there with the title company when they start trying to get seller approval for an assignment of the contract. It just helps us. Also, it's an additional disclosure for us, which isn't bad. And then in paragraph 11, we're going to put this in there. I'm not going to read this off to you because all y'all can read. But bottom line, it's just a statement that buyer and seller both agree that this property is going to be wholesaled. The seller agrees that we have the right to go and sell the property. We can option it off, and there's no further approval needed on the seller side for this to occur. So this is the exact disclosure that an attorney is going to advise you put down there in paragraph 11. Now, on the buyer side of things, we're going to state that every single communication that's made, every conversation that occurs, anything that you put on Facebook, email, X, verbally, text message, whatever, we're going to state that we're not selling the property. We're marketing and selling our equitable interest again. And now here, I actually do want to use the magic language of equitable interest. I can also say I'm selling my rights to the contract, but I'm selling my equitable interest to 123 Main Street. Maybe even include in there, I'm not offering to sell the property to you. So you got to be very, very careful in this. A single mistake or violation of this can be a $10,000 fine from TREC. And in my opinion, this includes you go out there, you get a contract for the purchase of the property, and then you put a sign in the yard that says for sale, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Call Mr. Wholesaler here at XYZ phone number. I think that's well, strike that. I know it's a violation because I had a client get fined $10,000 for doing this the wrong way. So it's hyper technical and very, very important. Otherwise, you've got some folks out there that are going to start filing complaints against you, getting TREC involved, and causing you to be fined. Novations, again, I want to talk about one specific aspect of novations, and I'm going to explain what novations are just in case you don't. In general, I say it's the same as wholesaling with a couple of advantages. One advantage is the investor is now able to control the listing of this property. And that's very valuable because we can go out there and find buyers that have conventional lending. A conventional lender is not going to allow an assignment fee, a wholesale fee. Title insurance underwriters also don't like assignment fees. And so we can now go out there, not have this be an assignment or wholesale contract. We can go out there and list this thing on MLS, find buyers with conventional lending. So it's pretty good. We're able to get a higher sales price and get more dollars. We're not just looking for potential investors paying cash. So we're going out there finding these end user buyers. The structure of a novation is the investor, call them novators at this point, they get a contract with the seller, same as a wholesale deal. Additionally, a novation agreement is signed, and that novation agreement says that we're going to list this property, and I, as the novator, the investor, is going to control that listing. And then, just like a wholesale, we go out and find an end buyer, but a little bit different. A seller is now, once we find that end buyer, going to contract with that end buyer. So it's a direct contract between seller and end buyer as opposed to an assignment of my contract as the investor. And then that novator gets a difference between contract one and contract two. So I think this is a good thing, especially good for investors to know how it's done. I think it's a little bit complex. I don't like explaining things whenever the first little step out of the box is let's talk about something that you don't even know what the word is that it's called novation. The average person doesn't understand this. So since I don't like starting a relationship this way, what I like to do is the alternative that I have is just simply a JV agreement between me and the seller. I negotiate this equity partnership, this joint venture endeavor with the seller. Hey, your property needs $30,000 of work done to it, Mr. Seller. You don't have that money. I do. So let's partner up and get this thing sold at a higher amount so that you, Mr. Seller, can get more dollars. That's easier than discussing what a novation is. That joint venture agreement describes in detail what the investor's to do and what the seller's going to get dollar-wise. Then that seller signs a contract with the investor, but that property is deeded over to a joint venture now. And that joint venture specifically states that I, as investor, am allowed to control what that joint venture does. So now I'm effectively, as the investor, going to be able to control the sale of this property without any further involvement from the seller. Another betterment to that novation structure that we talked about. So then the same thing occurs, and end buyer is found. A new contract is now generated between the joint venture and the end buyer. So see what that does? It takes the seller out of the equation. So if they start changing their mind or they're not available or what have you, we don't need them anymore. So a far superior system than that usual novation structure. And then after the sale, the investor and the seller split the proceeds that was detailed inside that joint venture agreement. So hopefully you can see the aspects in the joint venture structure that are far superior to that novation structure. So bottom line, be careful with the wholesales, learn the laws. Don't go out there and listen to out-of-state gurus and things of that nature on how to do these things. You need to listen to how they're done from a legal standpoint, and then also use the correct forms. We're not using out-of-state forms here in Texas. And then over there in that novation deal, learn about the simplified structure of the joint venture. So I say sign up to learn more. You're already smarter than the average bear. You clicked on that button to learn these two things. And we have dozens and dozens and dozens of other presentations explaining Texas specific education. So be careful out there, kids, and we look forward to seeing you.